The next section of this training will include identifying bias, racial microaggressions, dismissive and/or negative comments, and deconstructing reviewer comments. The content includes words and phrases that should be avoided, as well as examples of microaggressions or discriminatory comments that have been used historically to oppress certain people or groups. These may cause distress to people who have experienced discrimination on the basis of their identity. We understand that many of these issues in this next section are personal and emotive for many people. While naming microaggressions and discriminatory or oppressive comments is necessary to deconstruct them, we recognize that this can take a toll on those directly affected. Please prioritize your well-being if you experience discomfort while engaging in this next section of the training material. How people experience the world is valid, even if those experiences are outside the reviewer's worldview. One of the ways we know this is because there are so many ways to understand and practice inclusive teaching. Your role as a reviewer is to recognize and value that there is a spectrum of ways of knowing, pedagogies, methodologies, and positionalities. You will now have an opportunity to practice identifying bias and racial microaggressions through the exploration of sample reviewer feedback. We ask that you take a few minutes to review the 5 statements that will appear on your screen shortly. Then, please select at least 2 of these statements and reflect on how they are problematic and why. The statements are as follows. 1. Your proposal is about Black, Indigenous, and people of color, yet you seem to draw from literature that focuses primarily on the experiences of Black students. Draw from more inclusive sources and determine your target audience. Statement 2. Historically marginalized educational developers' experiences in TLCs are an important topic. I'm excited to attend your session. We have so much to learn from the presenters, especially from recommendations. Statement 3. Could be better developed. Please provide evidence of how these specific marginalized groups relate to the work of educational developers. You might want to take an intersectionality approach. It would strengthen the session. Statement 4. It would be worthwhile for POD members if this session on Faculty of Color experiences could also address allyship. And Statement 5. While the experiences of Indigenous students are timely and a unique topic, I am not sure it's transferable to all campuses. After you have completed this activity, I will attempt to briefly unpack these statements so that you can carry your learnings forward as you conduct your reviews. At this time, you should press pause on the video and write down your reflections. When you are ready, please press play to continue the training. Some of the central themes in these statements is the notion that the work of equity and inclusion should be executed by people of color or diverse others, and that beneficiaries of such work are often good-willed white allies who want to implement recommendations offered by people of color, and that white people and their experiences are the norm or basis of expertise and credibility. Let's deconstruct this a bit further. Using phrases such as, "it would be worthwhile," such as in Statement 4, or more inclusive sources, such as in Statement 1, are likely to be poorly received as offensive, undermining, or demeaning. In other words, the experiences and narratives of faculty of color is not a worthwhile topic of its own merit unless allyship is addressed. Another theme in these statements is an assumption about how intersectionality does or does not operate in marginalized groups or among ignored people. Statement 3 seems to also imply a misreading of intersectionality. It is important to remember that authors have limited word count restrictions in which to communicate their ideas. Thus, requesting that proposal authors provide evidence is not particularly useful and may in fact be harmful to the recipients. Statement 5 is also particularly problematic because it implies that the experiences of a marginalized group, in this case Indigenous students, is not of concern to all campuses. This statement others Indigenous students and demonstrates the reviewer's potential ignorance of the forced removal of Indigenous peoples from their land, upon which most North American universities and colleges are built. People of color, Black, Indigenous people of color, Asian people, Latinx, and other groups are often lumped together and used as a foil to what is normal, i.e. white. If a proposer chooses to focus on one minoritized or marginalized group, this is just as valid as a more universalized cultural approach, which often has so many exceptions as to render it useless. In fact, a focused look at a particular experience may offer more opportunities for everyone's learning. Statement 2 is also highly problematic. The use of the word "we" reinforces the sense that the proposers are on the outside of the organization and they need to teach white colleagues who are on the inside. Let's say that the proposal authors are not part of a minoritized group or among historically ignored people. The use of "we" is still exclusionary because it is likely to be interpreted as an inside group. Maybe the statement could be reframed as, historically marginalized educational developers' experiences in TLCs are an important topic. I'm excited to attend your session. It would benefit everyone in the Pod Network community. We hope you found that helpful. It is certainly not an exhaustive list of the themes prevalent in these comments, nor does it debunk every aspect of what is problematic. But it is a start into unearthing systemic issues that sometimes creep into reviews, and we just want you to be aware and conscious of how it happens.